Have you ever been caught between what's right and what's easy? Have you ever faced a decision so heavy that no matter what you chose, you knew it would change everything? That was Pontius Pilate, a Roman governor, a man of power, law, and order. He ruled Judea from Caesarea, a province where tension between Rome and the Jewish people boiled beneath the surface, always ready to explode. Pilate wasn't here to seek truth. He wasn't here to serve justice. He was here to keep control, to enforce the will of the empire. But then one man stood before him, a man beaten, bloodied, silent in the face of accusation, a man whose very existence challenged kings and priests alike, a man they called Jesus. Pilate had the power to set him free, but power means nothing if you don't have the courage to use it. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, he let history make the decision for him. Today, his name is remembered not as a ruler, but as a coward. Yes, Israel, the land where faith and politics have clashed for centuries. And in this land, a Roman official once made a choice that changed history. So now I ask you, have you ever tried to stay neutral, only to realize that doing nothing is still making a choice? Because Pilate tried. And for over 2,000 years, the world has never forgotten what he did. The sun beat down on Caesarea, the Roman capital of Judea. Pontius Pilate stood in the balcony of his palace, staring at the endless blue of the Mediterranean. The sea stretched before him, vast, powerful, yet predictable. Unlike the province he ruled, Judea was a storm waiting to break, a land filled with religious fanatics, rebels, and men who spoke of prophecies and kings. Pilate had seen plenty of so-called messiahs before, and he had crushed them all. He was not in Judea to make friends. He did not care about Jewish customs, traditions, or their God. He was here for one reason: to enforce Roman law, to keep order. And when the Jews stepped out of line, he made them pay. He had massacred men inside the temple for resisting Roman rule. He had stolen from their treasury to fund his own projects. He had crushed uprisings before they could begin. But Rome was always watching. Governors of Rome were powerful, but not untouchable. Caesar had replaced men for less. Pilate knew the truth. One mistake, one rebellion, one political failure, and his days of power would be over, and he would not go down like that. But then one prisoner was brought before him, a man accused of calling himself king, and everything changed. Have you ever felt powerful, yet trapped by forces greater than yourself? It was still early morning when they brought Jesus to Pilate. The Jewish leaders refused to enter his court, afraid of defiling themselves before Passover. Hypocrites! Pilate walked out to meet them. "What is your charge against this man?" They did not answer him directly. "If he were not a criminal, we would not have brought him to you." That was not an answer. Pilate's patience grew thin. "Then judge him by your own law," they protested. "We are not permitted to put anyone to death." Now Pilate understood. They didn't just want Jesus punished, they wanted him dead. So Pilate had Jesus brought inside. And then for the first time, he saw him. A man, bloodied, beaten, but standing tall. His face was swollen from the abuse of the night. His robe hung loosely around his body. But his eyes? There was no fear, no hatred, only calm. Pilate leaned forward. "Are you the King of the Jews?" Jesus answered with a quiet strength, "My kingdom is not of this world." Pilate frowned. This was no rebel, no warrior. He turned back to the crowd. "I find no fault in him." That should have been the end. Pilate should have freed him. But he hesitated, and hesitation is where history is made. Have you ever ignored your conscience, hoping someone else would make the decision for you? Pilate needed a way out, and so he made a coward's move. He sent Jesus to Herod Antipas, ruler of Galilee, hoping to pass responsibility. Let Herod deal with it. But Herod mocked Jesus, dressed him in a royal robe, and sent him back. Pilate sighed. The choice was his again. Then another thought. Passover. There was a custom. Every year one prisoner was released. Pilate called for Barabbas, a murderer, a rebel, a man soaked in blood, a true enemy of Rome. The crowd would never choose him over Jesus. But Pilate had underestimated them. When he offered them the choice, they screamed, "Give us Barabbas!" Pilate's stomach twisted. Then what shall I do with Jesus, the one called Christ? Crucify him! Have you ever let public opinion decide for you when you knew what was right? Pilate still believed he could control the situation, so he ordered Jesus to be flogged. A Roman whip with metal and bone tore into his back. The soldiers mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" They pressed a crown of thorns onto his head. Blood ran down his face. Pilate brought him out. He gestured to the broken man before them. "Behold the man." He was hoping for sympathy. Instead, they screamed louder, "Crucify him!" Pilate had failed. Compromise would not save him. Have you ever thought a small compromise would make things easier, only to find yourself deeper in trouble? Then the priests played their final card. If you let him go, you are no friend of Caesar. That was it. That was the real threat. They would report him to Rome. Pilate hesitated one last time. His wife sent him a message. "Have nothing to do with this righteous man, for I suffered in a dream because of him." Even she knew. Pilate turned to the crowd. "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." That was all Pilate needed to hear. He took a bowl of water. He dipped his hands, and he washed them. "I am innocent of this man's blood." He handed Jesus over. Have you ever tried to wash your hands of something when deep down you knew you were responsible? Pilate thought he was done, but he wasn't. He placed a sign above Jesus' cross. "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." The priests protested. "Change it. Write that he claimed to be king." Pilate refused. "What I have written, I have written." Was it guilt, a final act of defiance? History doesn't say. But Rome was watching. And a few years later, Pilate was removed from power. He faded into disgrace. Some say he was exiled. Others say he took his own life. Either way, he was forgotten by Rome, but never by history. His name became a warning, a lesson of cowardice, of hesitation, a reminder that doing nothing is still making a choice. What will history say about your choices? Will you be remembered for standing for truth or washing your hands of it? Pontius Pilate held the power to free Jesus. He stood before a beaten, innocent man. He had heard the truth from his own lips. He had felt the weight of his wife's warning. And still he hesitated, because Pilate wasn't ruled by justice. He was ruled by fear. He tried to be neutral, but in doing nothing, he condemned an innocent man. He washed his hands, but the stain never left. He thought he could escape the choice, but history never forgets cowards. For over 2,000 years, his name has been spoken in shame, in regret, in warning, because in the end, he made a choice. And so do we. Have you ever avoided making a hard choice only to realize that doing nothing is still making a decision? Because when faced with truth, silence is a choice. So tell me, do you think Pilate could have done anything differently? Or was his fate sealed the moment he chose comfort over courage? Let me know in the comments. And if you think Pilate's story is chilling, wait until you hear about Caiaphas, the high priest who orchestrated Jesus' trial. Check out our next video. His hands weren't just stained with one decision. They were soaked in conspiracy,